Choo-Choo Charles is the latest addition to the pantheon of hit indie horror games you see YouTubers playing. Now, I still pay a little attention to this very specific section of gaming, but I never take the time to play any of them, and when I do, it's not very good. Most of these games just don't really intrigue me that much, but Choo-Choo motherfucking Charles over here got my attention. The initial trailer alone was enough to get me interested. I mean, you have this demonic spider train amalgamation thing chasing you around as you shoot it down with a machine gun tied to a train of your own. I mean, is that not badass? This was mostly a one-man project by Gavin Eisenbeis. With that in mind, I gotta say, this is a pretty impressive title. The premise is awesome and the execution is alright, but I do have quite a few problems with it. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna say, oh, it's just an indie game, but that doesn't make it exempt from criticism, as long as none of it's mean-spirited, that is. That being said, it's also unfair to hold these games to the same standards as your usual AAA game. Mostly. I give feedback because I genuinely love this idea, and I want to see whatever Gavin's cooking up next. Seriously, Gavin, if you're watching this review, don't stop creating these types of games. Clearly they found an audience to resonate with and bring some refreshing ideas to the world of gaming. I'm gonna be spoiling the whole damn thing, so if you don't want to hear any of that, this is your only warning. We good? Okay, it's Choo-Choo time. The game begins with a phone call from good ol' Eugene, calling our unnamed protagonist about some crazy specimen living on an island somewhere in hopes of taking it down and possibly rewarding the protag with the corpse for a museum they're running. Later, the two arrive at Aranerum, the previously mentioned island housing the half-train, half-giga-spider from hell. Wow, I sure hope Eugene walks at a completely regular pace while we head on to the island. Well, the two of us make it to a train shed, and then we're revealed who the real Thomas is, and then the clone Thomas dies or something. Unidentified protag eventually finds a key to unlock the shed and hop aboard the train inside. Almost immediately after taking it for a spin, we encounter the titular monster himself. After attempting to gun it down, Eugene predictably dies and gives us the last little bit of instructions.
Find the eggs. Find my son.
So there you go, now we have some shit we gotta take care of in the name of Eugene. Before I dive into the mechanics and objectives of the game itself, I have a few things I'd like to briefly go over first. For starters, and I'm really not sure why this is the case, but my game ran awfully. The only two applications I had open were the game itself and OBS for recording. Even after I turned on the settings, my game experienced a considerable amount of stuttering. I'm not going to hold it against the game because it was probably a me problem, especially considering that I haven't seen anybody else have my exact set of issues, but that's something I thought would be worth mentioning at least, especially as it took me out of the experience. One of the things you'll immediately notice is that none of the characters' mouths move. They speak full sentences, yet have no animation going up in those jaws of theirs. It's like modern Pokemon, but the exact opposite issue. Honestly, once I got used to this quirk, I didn't mind it all too much. In fact, it was kind of charming in a weird way. I don't know the exact string of words to explain what I'm talking about, but there's almost a homemade quality to it all. You can tell this was all a passion project by the creator first and foremost, and I love to see that in video games. My main gripe with the visuals is the lack of variety in them. You'll find the exact same wooden houses with the exact same interiors and the same exact mattresses and sometimes the same red carpets, and it does get repetitive. Every once in a while, they do introduce some fresh elements, but they're few and far in between. But, you want to know what's more repetitive than the visuals? The quests you go on throughout the game. There's a slew of optional side missions you'll find within the island. When you complete a mission, you'll be rewarded with some scraps, the main resource you'll be using. 95% of these missions are just the same boring, repetitive fetch quests. I had to redub this line and I'm feeling so... Hey, I left my thing over at that place. Can you go get it for me? Walks the place to get the thing, gets the thing, walks back. Hey, thank you for getting the thing. Here's some scraps. These quests that consist of walking to pick up an item and bringing them back isn't really my idea of fun. That's not to say there's no interesting missions here and there. I mean, far from it. Like this one where you slowly trudge across the lake to the middle island while avoiding a swamp monster within. I also really enjoyed the Slenderman homage they threw into the middle of the game.
Strange sounds coming from the kitchen. Holy sh!
I can tell that the voice actors had a lot of fun doing some of these NPCs. Overall, while I did find some things that I liked, the lack of variety did kind of make me sad. Anyway, your main form of transportation will be via train. It's actually pretty fun riding this thing. You'll find a lot of extra scraps hidden nearby the tracks too, or other locations that are off the beaten path. The scraps I've been talking about are also used for upgrading or repairing your train. There's a point in the game where you'll have so many that you're just practically invincible as long as you know what you're doing. Besides scraps, you can find paint cans to customize your train, or shiny new guns, which are surprise tools that'll help us later. Now, as for the horror aspect of the horror game, yeah, it's not very scary at all. I guess I'm alright with it because the game has a lot of aspects that are meant to be silly and not taken seriously at all. It almost feels like a parody of the indie horror game genre, and I welcome it. And that's not to say that there weren't a few moments that genuinely caught me off guard, and a few sequences that put me on edge. But nothing truly terrified me, but that's okay. I'd rather have a good non-spooky horror game than a bad, really spooky horror game. I think the quote-unquote scariest moments for me were these stealth missions inside the mines. Within them are all these really weird masked cult members, I guess, and they're all armed with shotguns. These are also the quests where you retrieve one of the 3 eggs previously mentioned. The goal is to sneak around these bad guys, taking what is yours, and then getting the hell out of there. However, with your infinite stamina and their awful aim, you could theoretically just run through and pass these guys and have them chase you anyway. They really don't know when to stop chasing you because some of them were on my ass for a while out in the open fields. Nothing the train's guns can't stop though. Speaking of the train's guns, let's get to the main appeal of the game. Charles. You'll encounter this motherfucker numerous times throughout your adventure as you fend off against him with your weapons as he attacks. I really liked these encounters. The little bit of resource management with swapping out the guns as they overheat and strategizing the best way to take him down was really neat for the first few times. Yeah, this guy's pretty easy to get rid of. I think they added the best action to the game for sure, but once you got a pattern down, yeah, the whole ordeal just kind of becomes trivial. You shoot down Charles and he eventually runs off, but sometimes he comes right back after 30 seconds have passed. It can be a little monotonous at times. You can never kill Charles during these encounters, however, when placing these 3 eggs you've been collecting at the center of this temple thing, he'll commit to a battle to the death. These eggs also contain the babies of Charles, so yeah, best thing to get rid of them. You go to the temple, place 2 of the 3 eggs in, and good value Walter White comes in the house to tell you to stop your silly behavior. However, without hesitation, the unnamed protag places the final egg into the shrine thingy, eventually lighting up a beacon. But uh-oh, Charles absorbs the energy and becomes a bigger, stronger monster and eats the Heisenberg wannabe. This is where the final fight happens. It's you versus Hell Charles. Yeah, what a name. You wish you were her, by the way. Anyway, here we are, the final battle. It's the same previous encounters, except it's longer and sometimes Charles teleports. Can't lie, it was kind of hype though. When he's out of health, you'll drive over a bridge that you previously planted bombs upon, and then the demon train goes out with a bang. Well, that was cool. Choo-Choo Charles was a pretty solid game, all things considered, but to be honest, I found myself to be kind of bored throughout significant parts of it. Again, the premise is awesome, but the lack of variety and repetition of mundane fetch quests ad nauseum hindered my enjoyment. But damn it, this game has a good amount of soul and passion put into it. Again, I give these critiques because this is a truly special concept, and I think if given the right time or even a bigger budget, we could totally have a kick-ass game in the future. I think it's definitely successful enough, and with the sequel baity post-credits scene, a follow-up is definitely not out of the question. So yeah, there you go. This was supposed to be a shorter video, but I got a pretty big review coming up. Later, everybody. I'll see you all in 3 years when the Wild World retrospective comes out. Fuck you.
Good job, you guys.